had hotel bills, meals away from home, restaurant meals. She said if we didn't own our own home and weren't later in life, accessing healthcare would have bankrupted us. Bankrupted us. And she said that my husband and I have paid taxes our entire lives. The deal between people and their government is broken. Nobody deserves what she got. Nobody deserves that. But you know, we look at our healthcare system and we say, well, how do we fix this? This fixes. The good news is this fixes. We have 77 people in British Columbian healthcare whose title is vice president. 77. Alberta has 8. And they think 8's too many, so they're cutting it back to 6. We have 77. Absolutely unbelievable. We've invested $0 more on the front line of healthcare, and we've grown healthcare administration by 165%. Think of this. We complain we have no doctors around British Columbia. We have foreign credentialed doctors in Canada driving Uber. We have foreign credentialed nurses working at A&W. And let me tell you how I know that, because one of my A&Ws, an elderly lady, slipped and fell, hit her head, started bleeding. Credentialed because we would be required to start from 0 and go through the process again. How did this happen? We've got pharmacists in Alberta who can write prescriptions and do kids' vaccines. They can't do that in BC. We've got registered nurses throughout BC who could become nurse practitioners, where they could write prescriptions and do everything a doctor can do, but for a year of training, we don't do that. When the EB government decided to open a second medical school in BC, they opened it a 1-hour drive from the other medical school in BC. We need doctors in the north, we need doctors in the Kootenays, we need doctors in the Okanagan, we need doctors on the North Island. And we have 2 medical schools that in the worst rush hour are a 1-hour drive apart. Makes no sense. The fixes are there. This government just doesn't want to. The other thing that really surprised me, people don't feel safe on the streets in British Columbia anymore. And it's fairly new. This didn't happen 20 years ago. This has happened in the last few years. And you know, it's funny, I was going up to Smithers. And if you don't know where Smithers is, it's north, slightly to the left in British Columbia. It's a town of about 5,200, 5,400 people. So I was going up there, and I phoned our MLA up there, and I said, you know, Sharon, I'm coming up. What am I going to hear when I get to Smithers? Like, give me a heads up so I can be prepared for what people are going to want to talk about. And she said, well, public safety is the #1 issue. I said, Smithers? And she said, yeah, Yuri, I don't feel safe on the streets. I said, well, Sharon, I've been to Smithers a lot of times. I think there's like 9 streets in Smithers. Like, which ones do you not feel safe on? And she said, 2 out of 9. And sure enough, we go up there. There's a homeless encampment up against the edge of the building we're meeting in. Building almost catches on fire while we're meeting in it because they were lighting a fire up against the wall. And then you say, you know, how is this possible? I gave this talk in Kelowna, and an RCMP member was in the room. He put up his hand and he said, do you know what happens when you get arrested in BC? And I thought, is this a trick question? He wants to find out if I've actually been arrested in BC, and do I have the answer? So I said, no, I haven't been arrested in BC. I haven't been arrested anywhere else either, just in case you're wondering. It's all good. And he said, when we arrest somebody in BC, we take them to the police station, we photograph and fingerprint them, and then we have to make this decision. Do we recommend charges or not? And I said, what do you mean recommend charges? Down to the police. And he said, BC, Quebec, and Yukon are the only 3 provinces in Canada where the police cannot lay criminal charges. Can you say that again? Police in BC cannot lay criminal charges. So he said, when I've got somebody I've arrested and brought in, I have to make the decision. Do I recommend charges or not? And he said, if I'm going to recommend charges, I have to fill in a thing called the long form. So all the police in BC refer to it as the long form. The long form takes 4 to 6 hours to complete. So he said, I have to make the decision. Is it worth me filling in this form, or am I better off going back on the street and protecting British Columbians? And he said, if I recommend charges, it takes between 1 day and 3 weeks for Crown Counsel to decide whether or not they recommend charges. So he said, as a result, I'll often arrest the same person for committing the same crime on the same shift on the same day. And I I said, walk me through that. He said, at the beginning of my shift, I'll arrest John for breaking and entering on street A. And by the end of the same shift, same day, I'll have arrested John again for breaking and entering just on street B this time. That is the revolving door of justice that's in this class. And you say to yourself, well, Yuri, how is that possible? And has it always been possible? So no, it has not always been true. And then you say, well, why is that possible? How did we end up here? And then you realize we have a premier in BC, David Eby, who before he was premier, wrote a book called How to Sue the Police. Right? It's his big claim to fame. He wrote this book called How to Sue the Police. He's not going to win him a Nobel Prize, but he wrote a book that he's super proud of called How to Sue the Police. So we don't trust the police in British Columbia. And no wonder, because we've got a premier who wants everybody to sue them. Again, problem government created, problem we can fix. The last thing that I knew I'd hear, because we all know, right? It's about affordability. We go to the grocery store, and what you get for your money is not what you used to get for your money. And you know, I had the experience last Sunday where I went grocery shopping for my kids and I walked out the door with barely enough food for dinner and maybe another meal. And you know, I'm $50 into it. Like, how does this happen? When did this happen? But, you know, I was out around the province, we're in Cranbrook, and so I'm talking about affordability. A nice man in the front row, he says, you're a real estate developer in Cranbrook. You can buy a brand new townhouse for $329,000 a year. And you get a job in the mine for $150,000 a year, and by the way, they can't find people to work. We're up in Fort St. John. Same thing, brand new, fully detached house, $450,000, $500,000, $180,000 job in the mine. Again, they can't find people to do it. So for those of us who've got a little bit more gray hair, you'll remember that was the math we grew up with, right? Where for about 3 times what you made, you could buy a house. Like my first condo I bought in downtown Vancouver, I was making about $30,000 a year as an assistant manager at A&W. Cost me $89,000. Right? That's the math that can work. That's the affordability that can work. But what's in common between Cranbrook and Fort St. John? The common thing in the 2 examples I gave you was there was a good job at the mine. A good family supporting job where only mom or dad has to work. And so this province was built on natural resources. It was built on mining, it was built on forestry, it was built on agriculture, and it was built on the energy sector. And we're now in a place where to cut a tree down in BC, you need 31 permits. By the time they issue the 31st permit, the first 5 have expired. We were up in 100 Mile House. And have you ever seen the show Timber Kings, a TV show? It's about guys who build these huge log homes, right? Like these big, beautiful log homes that they ship around the world. The Europeans love them, the Chinese love them, the Japanese love them. Beautiful log homes. And so he was in the room for my talk. And I said, well, how's business? And he says, well, I've got more customers than I can handle. And I said, oh man, that's great, like great news for our economy. He said, yeah, and I'm busy refunding all of their deposits. I said, you're doing what? He said, I can't get any trees. Can't get any logs, so I'm having to refund deposits. So this is a business in BC. We're not exporting raw logs. It's a guy who uses skilled tradespeople, good family supporting jobs, to build these homes that are shipped around the world. It should be the pride of Canada, pride of British Columbia, and we can't get him enough trees to do it. And we've got mines ready to go that can't get permits. And we're now importing energy from Alberta and Washington State. It's coal-fired energy. That's the worst kind. Meanwhile, we've got 180 years of natural gas sitting in the ground that we're too embarrassed to use. And you know, we've got a premier who, if you mention natural resources to him, he breaks into a slight sweat. He starts staring at his feet, and there's a vein on this side that starts to pop out a little bit. Because he's fundamentally embarrassed by natural resources. He has a forestry minister who went up to Prince George and couldn't tell the difference between a couple of common BC trees. And when they asked him when was the last time he saw a tree, he said it was my Christmas tree. That's who's in charge of forestry in this province. Right? So we're fundamentally embarrassed by it. It is the thing that will save our economy. It is the thing that has always driven the British Columbia economy. And we need to get back to a place where we're using our natural resources. Norway, that you could fit on Vancouver Island almost, harvested 3 times as many trees as we did in 2024. And they have a $2 trillion sovereign fund that supports Norwegians and their social services. By the NDP's own numbers, we'll be $250 billion in debt in 2 years. How did we end up here? Right, this province used to be the pride of Canada and the envy of the world. And in 2024, 70,000 British Columbians left the province. It's the biggest exodus in history. Last year, 150,000 British Columbians left the province. And they didn't leave because this isn't the greatest place on earth. They left because they can't afford to be British Columbians and the deal with their government is broken. I'm going to finish by telling you what I think is a funny story. And I think you'll find it funny until the point in the story where a light bulb goes on and you realize you're the taxpayer in this story. So I'm knocking on a door in 2024. Super young guy answers the door, like early 20s guy. And he's wearing Birkenstocks and socks. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not the uniform of a traditional conservative voter. I'm just saying. So I go into my spiel, Yuri, conservative candidate, here to earn your vote. And he says, I'm voting conservative. Okay, almost bowled me over. I said, well, what do you do for a living, sir? He says, I work for the provincial government. Okay, Birkenstocks, socks, government employee. It's not adding up for me, but let's run with it. So I said, well, what do you do for a living, sir? What do you do for the provincial government? And he says, well, I'm employed by the Ministry of Health to respond to the COVID hotline. I said, oh, well, thank you for doing that. We all lacked information during COVID. Thank you for doing that. And he said, yeah. He said, I got hired during COVID. It was a fully remote job, right? Work from home job. And so he said, I would log in the morning. There'd be calls in queue, emails, texts in queue. And he said there was thousands, like thousands every day. And we'd work all day and there'd still be thousands in queue. But he said as COVID diminished, the thousands became hundreds. The hundreds became tens. He said then there was the day there were no calls in queue. He said then the next day there were no calls in queue. The day after there were no calls in queue. And he said that was 2.5 years ago. I'm still employed full-time by the provincial government to respond to the COVID hotline. I thought it was funny until you realize you're the taxpayer in this story. So I say to him, like, sorry, so every day you sit in front of your computer and stare at a blank screen? He said, don't be stupid. He said, well, I've got another full-time job. So he said, I do the other full-time job at home. I leave the government's computer on my desk, and if anybody ever pings it, I'll happily answer. He says good 2.5 years. I was like, oh. All right, so thanks for being honest with me, and so I turned to go, and he says, you know what? He says, I cannot be the only person. I'm not the only one that's on this free run. So I put it down. So we got a $13.5 billion deficit to close, right? And everybody says, well, you can't cut anything, you can't cut healthcare. Well, there's one guy, at least, working in healthcare in BC that has a job that's meaningless. And he's already got another one, so if we move him on, he's already got another job he's working at. So when people tell you there's no cuts to be made, think of that guy in Scotland, and I tell you there are cuts that can be made. That's our job. It's going to be tough. We're going to get elected, whenever it is, 2028 at the latest or sooner. We are going to have to make changes for British Columbia, because I tell you, people like me used to stand in front of rooms of people like you and tell you we're mortgaging our children's future. It's not going to get that far. We're mortgaging our futures. Right? If you think emergency rooms are closed now, you have 5 years of this, and the government's going to be deciding which hospitals to close, and not close temporarily, but close permanently. Healthcare and education will be 103% of the provincial budget in a few years. Don't leave anything else. So that's our job. That's why I'm running. That's why people like Bruce and I put our names on ballots, so we can go out there and take our province back, bring hope back for British Columbians. There is a better future for all of us, but it is with a conservative government. So thanks everybody for coming out. So I'd love to answer questions, have a conversation, we can all have a chat. So,
Who was the healthcare credit, and is this person doing a good job? I'm just wondering.
yeah, so Anna Kindy's our healthcare critic. I think she's fantastic. She is a doctor. So if you look at the folks on the NDP side who are in cabinet, we've got a Minister of Forests who's never met a tree, right? On our side, we've got people ready, because they've been foresters their entire career. We've got Minister of Health who, maybe she went to a doctor once. We've got doctors on our side. So we've got the kind of caucus that is ready to be in cabinet, ready to form government, and ready to make changes. So I think we're there, we're ready to go. We're gonna make an excellent cabinet, and we've got the people who know how to make the changes, because they've worked in the system.
What's
You
the
know what I mean?
person's name that's, who is the person?
So Anna Kindy is our critic for health, Kindy, yeah, to medical doctor. Thank you. So, to that. You, yeah,
100%, you've identified everything that's near and dear to my heart. But what I'm interested in is how we're gonna fix it. Okay, it's easy to identify the problems, we all see it, in major or minor ways. The hottest issue for me, and I see you've identified that you possibly are living in swim land, is what are we going to do with the UNDRIP, or DRIP as they also refer to it? What is your solution for getting rid of that?
we've got to repeal it. So, the day I'm sworn in, the Bible's here, the repealing legislation is there, right? It's order number one. We also have to aggressively appeal the council decision.
Yeah,
We also need to take, I'm gonna go a step beyond it, because it's not just about, it's about what is the position we're gonna take as a government. And the position is that British Columbia belongs to all British Columbians all day long, right?
I don't
And
disagree
we
with
stand
that.
firm.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but would it be fair to say that it actually, the issue we have, the no treaty issue, and with the federal government coming in and giving rights to land, which is over and above our premier or above what our ability as British Columbians, does it not require constitutional change?
So the best solution to this would be constitutional change, right? It's enshrining private property rights in our constitution. We can't do that on our own, as you know.
Okay, but that's gonna take 7 out of 10 provinces, 50% of the population of Canada, with Quebec having a veto. And we're here in British Columbia, this is next to impossible. It would be easier to separate than it would be to get a constitutional reform.
So I would have agreed with you 100% a year ago. And I would say I don't think it's zero now, but I'm not as in full agreement with you as I would have been before. This conversation has radically changed, right? The talk that I just gave around repealing DRIPA, so in 2024, we ran on repealing DRIPA, right, as conservatives, and we were a bunch of big, fat, racist, conservative memes, right? That's what was leveled at us.
Oh, really?
Now, today, the NDP is saying, I'm not saying repeal, but they'll amend 999 words out of 1,000 and so that they don't have to say it was repealed. You know what I mean? The pendulum is swung on this issue, right? And I tell you, because I go around the province, I'm in rooms of young, very angry men with guns, and they will stand at the end of their driveway and use them. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly at all. This issue is the most divisive issue the province has seen and that the country will see. And we will have civil unrest if we don't deal with this. This isn't like a touchy-feely issue anymore. This is a fundamental issue to Canadians. British Columbia is kind of the canary in the coal mine on the issue because we have the least number of treaties. Right, Alberta, 85% of Alberta is treaty, so it's settled. We're the way opposite way. So we're the canary in the coal mine. But don't think this doesn't affect people in other provinces
No,
too.
I'm aware of that.
And so I think the pendulum swings on this because I've never seen an issue that was so far one way 18 months ago come so far so fast. So I'm hopeful is what
Okay,
it
can I offer a solution?
Please.
What about using the notwithstanding clause?
So I am told by lawyers it does not apply to section 35 of the Constitution. Otherwise, I would in a heartbeat,
Oh, okay, because it's one of our.
because I will throw my body in front of people's private property rights. And those young men I talked about in northern BC, I will stand with them with firearms to defend my real estate.
And you gotta keep it very
Likewise, but-
Oh,
but they're gonna
I am with law-abiding gun owners all day, every day. There is no country in the world that screens more aggressively law-abiding gun owners than Canada does. And we've decided law-abiding gun owners are top. It's BS. So on my watch, the police will stand down the BC. We're not bothering with this nonsense.
I have a small international business, but seems to me that Canadians are ripping off Canadians a little bit too much, because just as a sample, I'm shipping out something to Los Angeles, costs $9.80. I ship it to Switzerland, $10.50, and I ship it to Macedonia, which is on the other side of the planet, for $11.50, but I ship it to my neighbor, it's $20, and $31 to Toronto, right? So Canadians ripping off Canadians, and I think the government has something to do with that, because, you know, small businesses should be able to do business here. I have to take my business back to Switzerland, and I love this province for 35 years, right?
Yeah, I love it too. I mean, I'm a small business guy in BC as well. And I mean, I meet with small business people all the time. If you look at the last few years under the NDP, employer health tax. So the province downloaded to employers the cost of healthcare. We've had a minimum wage bump that's above the rate of inflation. 5 paid sick days for employers, and 2 additional statutory holidays in BC. That were both made up days, right? Family days just made up.
Yeah.
So we made up these days. You know, I was meeting people yesterday who told me that the guy had, you know, decent sized business, a couple of hotels. He paid $500,000 in sick pay. Right? Like, it's the difference between making money and not making money. Like, we've got to stop this. Like, business is the driver of our economy.
Exactly.
Like, David Eby doesn't think so, by the way. He thinks the government should own everything. You know, we're the province that sells marijuana, right? Like, the government, your government sells marijuana.
Yeah.
They've got to be the only organization on the planet that can't make money selling marijuana. Like, it's staggering. It's staggering. So,
Hi, I appreciate everything you've said, and you tell good stories, and you've got the right hot buttons. But you also identified the primary problem that's got us here is a breakdown of the relationship, the fundamental relationship between the voter and the government promise. And I have a very big problem because this party started as a grassroots party. And then we watched what happened at the AGM, where the board got itself voted in by stacking the AGM. And then now the board has created this leadership race. So how do you restore our faith that we're even backing a horse that's going to do what we want if they're going off track right from the beginning?
yeah, it's a really valid question. So here's how I've come at that. So, one, I'll tell you, not on my watch. I don't put up with that kind of BS on my watch, and I don't need to do this. Right? We've got a lot of folks who need the job of being in politics. I don't. Like, I would honestly, like, love you guys, love my province. If I didn't feel I had to do this, I would rather go back home to my 4 and my 6-year-old, to my business that actually does pretty well, and to my community volunteerism that I love. I am doing this because we are standing at the edge of absolute provincial disaster. And I need to put it back together. And I need to do it for my kids, for your kids, for all of our kids. That's why I'm doing this. So I think my question to you, or what I would suggest to you and all of you, as you look at a leadership candidate, decide, does that candidate need this? Or does that candidate showing up because they want to make change? And I tell you, I'm here because I want to make change.
Okay, I can believe you on that. I'm still at the point where we have a board that's gone rogue, broken their NDAs, and they are still unilaterally running things. How do we trust? That's where I am. I trust Tony. He's the guy I work for, your next door neighbor.
Yep.
And you sound like you're a good guy. I know you're being backed by a good guy. But if you're allowing a board that pulls that kind of nonsense to continue, how do I have faith that you're going to change anything in the government going forward?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, you know, I can't control what happens on the board of the party today. Like, I have this much influence on it, other than I have one vote as a member. But I can tell you, I don't put up with nonsense like that on my watch. It doesn't happen in my business. It doesn't happen in my community work. Whatever nonsense has gone on will be in the past, and we will move forward with integrity and thoughtfulness, and we will be a grassroots movement. Right? We will go back to the world in which, like, we're going to need in the next election 93 amazing candidates, right? Who can win? Caveat is great candidates who can win. Who knows who those candidates are? It's the people in the riding association, in the community, that know who it is. And you know, I said in a room yesterday, we were up in Vernon Lumbee, which you may or may not remember was a bit of an issue with a candidate put in at the last minute. I said to them, like, if I asked you all for one or two names in your community of who could win at the next election and who you would love to have as your MLA, so I bet you all of you would give me the same 1, 2, 3 names. They all looked at each other and went, yeah, we would. So I think there's hope for us to give us a bit of grace as a party. We've been around for 100 and whatever it is, 3 years, but really it's about a year and a half, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need to not forgive things that we did wrong. We need to give ourselves some grace that we came from nowhere to this close to government in about 16 months.
I know, I helped you get
there.
there.
I know, it's tough sledding. We all
And
did.
the other thing I'm worried about is there's a big rumor going around that facial recognition is gonna be used for this vote.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, digital ID is the one thing that everyone who wants freedom is trying to avoid. So first of all, my question to everyone who's bringing that up is, from what platform are you gonna facially ID me? I've never submitted to a facial ID in my life except at a border crossing. And if you're doing that, if you're IDing me from that one, you're illegally accessing it.
So-
And second,
So can I just
the other way,
close
this,
that?
let me
I'm not
finish
doing that,
the
Chief.
then-
I'm not doing that. That's the party.
I know that's the part, and this is again why I don't want that board. Because the only other reason to do that is you're creating the database. And that is a very big problem.
So if you read my Freedom Charter, no digital ID, I think is item 8 or 9 on my Freedom Charter. So I stand with it. I can't control what the party does. If I could, I would.
Let's call a general meeting and get this board out
You can do
here.
that. Like, I'd encourage
trying.
you, I'd encourage you to do that. So,
He asked my question, but I do think that you as a candidate and the MLA sitting behind you can be instrumental in doing something about this.
so we have done it, like, I don't wanna put people through verification, right? Like, that's gonna compromise the number of people who are gonna come out and vote.
No,
I want us all to vote.
understand
I want 99% of the members to show up and vote. Because I think in that world, we are a grassroots.
that. So what, we have to give into digital ID to get no digital ID?
If I could change it for you, sir, I would.
Like, to me, this is very important, and I'm gonna go to every candidate with exactly what that gentleman's raised, right? That was my next question, right? But we can't, this is intolerable. If the federal Conservative Party can do a paper ballot with Pierre Poilievre somewhat 2 years ago, if Alberta can do its referendum and do everything with paper ballots and eyeballs, why can we not do it? We still have until April 18th to close off membership drives, and we have until, what is it, May 30th or whatever to the vote.
Yeah.
You're telling me we can't change if we all did something
So I'm not
together?
telling you that. What I'm telling you is I am
What
beating the
can you
drum on
do?
this. But
What
my
can you
campaign
do?
manager and I, in every meeting, are asking for this. Item 9 and 10 on my Freedom Charter is no digital ID and paper ballots. I am the only candidate who has publicly said either of those things.
It's right on the homepage.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going
Right?
to-
I'm the only candidate that said either one of those things, and I tell you, I sat in a candidates meeting virtually where 2 of the 5 candidates were fully in favor of digital verification and fully in favor of the voting system as it is. So,
Can I guess at which two? Are you gonna tell us?
I think you'll probably guess correctly.
There's a question. I know digital money controlled by banks.
Sorry?
I know digital money controlled by banks.
We got it. Yeah.
So my, it's not a question, but it's kind of, so this party is compromised with BC Liberal, slash, conservatives. We have 2 or 3 candidates, obviously Peter Marlborough and, Carolina Elliott. They're doing independent, polls. And, so what they're doing, and then we have, Ian. So there are 3 liberal, BC Liberal people. So they're all together, they're all part of the Kevin kind of, organization or whatever. And, Miss Elliott was the negotiator, and Bruce would know more about that, the negotiator between John and Kevin holding the party, right?
Yep.
So, and now she's running for leadership.
Yep.
And somehow, when they do the polls, it's Melba on the top, when Melba does the polls, and Elliot on the second, and Ian on the third, and then nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
And when Miss Elliott does the poll, it's Miss Elliott on the top, Peter on the second, and then again Ian. And then you're nowhere to be seen. So,
So don't vote for him.
but the popularity, it matters, right? When people, because the news picks up on them. Every newspaper picks up on that, and then we stop way at the bottom. So how?
So you want me to tell you what's really going on
I'm
here?
just saying, like, I know what's going on, but the thing is, how do we prevent, polling, companies to stop doing that? Why do you pay for a, some sleazy polling? You'll be in every newspaper next day.
So let me, it's a great point, let me answer it. So if you look at Caroline Elliott's poll, look at the name of the polling company, try and Google it.
I do.
Like, it's basically Acme Polling Company run by Wiley Coyote, right?
Garbage in, garbage out.
And so when Caroline polled, she literally polled the members that had signed up through her portal. The startling part is she wasn't at 100%, so I don't know how that did happen. Peter Millibar polled the 4 ridings around Kamloops and part of the Okanagan, and he put his own membership list in as well. So, like, you gotta remember though, this isn't a leadership, so you can rest your arm, I will get to you next. Right, this is a leadership contest, not a popularity contest. So, some of you may not know the nuance of this, because it is a bit weird. There are 93 ridings, they are all equally weighted at 100 points. So there are ridings that today have 12 members, like North Island Haida Gwaii, which is Prince Rupert and Haida Gwaii. I think they're up to 18 members. And there'll be ridings like Surrey Newton that'll have 1,500 members. They're all worth 100 points. You know what you can't do when you poll? You can't poll 18 people in the North Island Haida Gwaii to find out how they're going to vote. So all you do is you take some list and then you go through and have a little bit of a popularity contest. So what we know is I know how many memberships I've sold, right? Because I came through my portal.
So what part, second part?
And I'm not in the business. Like, I appreciate I could go and get Wiley Coyote or the Roadrunner to do my poll and put out a BS poll. Like, I made a promise when I stood up to do this job that I would never lie to British Columbians. Right? And that wasn't a promise to you, that's a promise to me. I mean, you get the benefit of that promise, but I'll never lie to British Columbians. So I'm not gonna put up something that I know is total BS.
Just to say, just something I want to say. So if Miss Elliott wins, are we having Kevin back then?
Oh, 100%.
There you
So
go.
just so you know,
There you go.
the owner of the name BC Liberal Party and BC United Party, the owner of that name is Kevin Falcon.
Yep.
He is the only director. He controls that name. There is a reason he still controls that name, because when his sister-in-law, Caroline Elliott, who's his sister-in-law, who was, when they drove BC United off the cliff, one of them was in the driver's seat, the other one had the map and was in the passenger seat, and drove it off the cliff. They are playing, John F. Kennedy and Jackie, and they are gonna think they're a dynasty of people who are gonna bring back the Liberal Party in no short order. And the guy she hired to run her campaign, Corey, who ran Doug Ford's campaign, for those of you who follow Ontario politics, the first thing Corey did when Doug got elected was everybody who was a true conservative in that party got the boot, and they replaced them. That's what's gonna happen here. So he was so patient with you, Hannah, I really appreciate
So I have a few things. The first thing is, how are you going to deal with, as we were just discussing, the liberal rot in the party? Because to put it bluntly, is if you look at Peter Mylobar, his wife is Indigenous and his, I think it is, brother-in-law is one of the chiefs of the Kamloops Band. He wants to repeal DRIPA but put DRIPA 2.0. There's going to be these ankle biters that aren't true conservatives in the party, and if you're the leader, how are you going to deal with this?
So, I'm going to tell you something that might not be that popular, but I'm going to run you through some math. The only way we win the next election, the only way, is if some people who voted NDP at the last election come and vote for us, right? Because we lost, right? Like I lost, we lost, right? We didn't lose by very much. 600 votes in 4 ridings, but we lost. So unless we can either grow the vote right? And get people to come out who've never come out before. Or we swing people from the Greens or NDP to come and vote for us. Now, there's a bit of nuance, there were some independents that ran and got in the way, all of that stuff. But if we want to really run this province, we need 50, 55, 60 seats. The way to do that is that some of the people in the Senate come and vote for us. We know that 33% of British Columbians will vote NDP, don't matter what they do, right? They could come and bang on your head every day. 33% of British Columbians will vote for me. That leaves a lot of room for us. But we need everybody to see a home in the BC Conservative Party. Doesn't mean we change our values, right? So it's a BC Conservative Party, led by a Conservative. But that doesn't mean that other people aren't welcome in our party, right? Because we can't mathematically win unless people who were in the BC Liberals and BC United, and who might be federal Liberals, we can't win unless they come and vote for us. So it doesn't mean we move our tent left. It means we are the BC Conservative tent led by a Conservative, but it means we're open to other people coming and joining us.
I'm talking about not voters, but specifically the caucus members that ultimately will have liberal values like Peter Mylomar.
You know, I think we're gonna have caucus members that have all sorts of values. I think the big thing is not what values do they have, but the big thing is, do they want to sign up to be part of the Conservative team that will have Conservative values? So if they can sign up for that team and sign up to have Conservative values, if they used to be a member of the BC Liberal Party, we all make mistakes in life. But they have to want to sign up to be on the Conservative team with Conservative values under a Conservative leader. That's the criteria.
And I think that's what BC's lack is having a true Conservative government, because if you look at it, it's been the Liberal NDP show since the 50s.
Might have been a little Socrates time, at least. It was more palatable. So, you've been patient too.
Sir, speaking to what you guys were just talking about the umbrella, my wife and I are both union members, but we're conservative as hell. We don't want to see the labor laws, so to speak, screw over union members, because that's the middle class. Many of my coworkers, they're just like me, conservative as hell, but they won't vote for a conservative because of the threat that they see to our labor laws. I just want you to bear that in mind when you are the next president.
I appreciate that, sir, and so I appreciate you're a conservative and a conservative supporter. I think we need to be the Conservative Party that stands for working men and women, right? And if they're working in the private sector, that's good. If they're working in a unionized environment, that's good. We're trying to stand for people who want to make their lives a bit better. And so similar to what I was saying to the nice gentleman in front of you, I want to create a party where your colleagues who vote NDP right now see a home with us, right? So when I say I want a big tent that's open to people who voted NDP, people who are BC Liberals, people who are federal Liberals, that's what I mean. I want your colleague who right now probably gives you a hard time because you vote Conservative.
No, they don't. They don't. They respect us for voting conservative. It's
They just can't do it themselves.
the fear.
Yeah, I get that. So I want them to see a home with us too, right? I want them to look at our values, look at our fiscal responsibility, and say, yep, I can see a home with these guys. Because I think they're going to do a better job of running the province for us, for all the working men and women.
I just asked for you and Bruce to remember that
Yep.
when you are up there.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for that.
So my job was the whip, was often to shut things down. Get used to it. We're together in the end. So first off, I want a round of applause for Yuri for coming out. Do you get why I endorsed him now? So the other thing about it is he's like myself. When I ran to be the mayor, I was a political. No, he's not short. Thank you. That's my wife. Thanks, hon. So one of the things is I was a bit of a political outsider. I ran to be the mayor. I never held political office ever. And same thing with Yuri. A lot of people say, "Oh, you got to have political experience." Actually, I think it's an advantage right now in this time and frame, in this particular moment in history, not to have political experience, but have business experience.
Yes.
You agree with me? All right, so now I'm gonna go over some math for you. So what's the membership right now, Angus, roughly, in the party? 14,000 people, if the vote were held today, are gonna decide who your next premier is gonna be. Because that's out of almost 5 million people, 14,000 are gonna decide who your next premier is gonna be. Because it sure as hell ain't gonna be David Evie if I got my way about it, or your way about it. Does that sound healthy to you?
No.
No. All right, so we've heard a lot of questions about what are you gonna do, what am I gonna do? My question now to you, Paul, is what are you gonna do? And what you can do is stop being polite Canadians and actually go home and talk to your families, talk to your co-workers and say, this is the opportunity that we have right now to actually elect a guy that really has the interest of the province at heart. And how do you do that? Where's that piece of paper, Angus? You can go to the website, or you can grab a piece of paper and you can spend a whopping 25 bucks, we got some of the back there, and become a member, because here's how it works in all parties in British Columbia and in Canada. You don't get the vote for the leadership unless you're a member. 25 bucks gets you a 4-year membership. It's actually not a bad deal. The only downside of it is that you're gonna get emails asking for money probably about every 15 seconds. All parties do it. There is a way to get around that, by the way. So it's not a really good, valid reason not to do it. But please, right now we've got everything riding on this next election. This is not game time anymore about who we pick as our next one. I believe, for all of the things I told you, that Yuri is the right man for the job right now, in this moment in time. So do the unpolite Canadian thing and actually get people to get involved. Because it's only members that can decide and vote, and 14,000 is nowhere near enough, in my opinion, to be able to do this.
What's the deadline, Bruce?
The deadline is the 18th of April, and I wouldn't wait till the last day. I would make the deadline the 15th of April, because there's gonna be a lot of paper ballots that are gonna be put in, and there'll be a lot of people that'll wait, it's just human nature, wait till the last minute, and then they're all gonna complain that they couldn't get lined in because they're gonna clog the lines. So really, the deadline is the next few days. We're coming up, we've got about 15 days to get people to get involved. So actually talk to your wife about politics. Talk to your neighbors about politics. Talk to your kids, for crying out loud, about politics. Get them involved, because our future literally depends on this. Because literally, if we don't get this right, I don't know if you guys all remember the last time the NDP were on, there was bumper stickers that said, well, the last person leaving BC, please turn out the lights. It's no more real than it is now. I think it's actually more of a threat now. I have never seen the mass exodus that I've seen. Anybody with $100 million or more has a plan to get out.
How close to BC to bankruptcy?
We are very close. We've already had this is now, I think, the 5th or the 6th downgrade of our credit. And what that means is now the interest that we pay is $9 billion a year. It is approaching healthcare and education. It's now the number 3rd most expensive line item, I believe, in the budget. Number 3rd and number 4. So, I often.
You can't even get healthcare.
Yeah, it should be called disease management, not healthcare anyway, but that's another story. But and every time our credit gets downgraded, that means that the interest rate goes up. And it ain't gonna be us that pays this off, it'll be our grandkids.
If they're here.
If they're still here. So please, get involved. and tell your friends to get involved. Tell your union buddies to get involved, please. We are not, we don't have a history of beating up unions. That was people, that was other parties. We've got a fresh slate on us. What do you got to lose? Come with us. And we need your input. And furthermore, one of the best ways to make sure that your concerns are met is actually to get involved in the party so that we can actually come up with some decent policy that doesn't tick them off. Because my fight is not with unions at all. We want hard-paying jobs in this province because that's what built this damn province in the first place. So seriously, have them come join us right now because there will be AGMs and stuff and grassroots. 14,000 members. I know what union are you with, sir? If you don't mind me asking.
Teamsters 213.
Teamsters 213. You probably got more than 14,000 members in British Columbia. We're gonna guess in that particular union. It's one of the bigger.
Our president is a conservative. Closet.
You know, he doesn't have to be no more. Let's get it so that we're proud, because quite frankly, I don't understand why people keep voting for the NDP that are union members, because they've actually turned their backs on them many, many times. And I don't know if you're uncomfortable with this new voting system where the secrecy of a ballot disappeared, but I sure as heck don't like
I've
it.
never been NDP. I've always been a conservative.
For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, now to unionize, you don't have to have the luxury of a secret vote anymore. It's just a show of hands, and it just unnerves me, and I think it's the foundation of either, foundation that democracy should be in. No, there's no private ballot anymore, like if you're gonna certify, what they call certified. Anyway, so thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming out, and Yuri's gonna be the next Premier of British Columbia. Let's
And my young colleague here, Jackson, was his birthday a day and a half ago, 2 days ago. We're not going to sing, don't worry. All he wants for his birthday is Conservative Party membership.
Turn them off.